What most people over 60 don't realize is that quietly deteriorating circulation is silently multiplying their fall risk by 3, and the medical establishment has been largely silent about the one real solution hiding in plain sight. Which is why I've dedicated a significant portion of my research to uncovering a specific drink that can begin turning this around within hours of your first sip. And today, I'm walking you through precisely what happens inside your vascular system across the 24 hours following consumption, along with a complete ranking of the 10 most talked about circulation beverages, ordered from the ones that are frankly a waste of your time, all the way up to the single most powerful option I've ever come across in my years studying vascular health, one that has demonstrated the ability to expand arterial diameter by as much as 30%, which isn't just an impressive clinical statistic. It's the tangible difference between shuffling cautiously through a dark hallway at 2 a.m. and moving through your home with the kind of grounded, unhesitating confidence that makes life feel like yours again. The difference between feet that feel perpetually numb and wooden and legs that respond the way a healthy body is supposed to respond. And what I suspect will genuinely catch you off guard is that this drink is almost certainly sitting in your kitchen right now, but there's a very strong probability that the way you've been using it is actively canceling out its most powerful benefits. So stay with me through this entire breakdown, because what I'm sharing here cuts directly against the conventional guidance most physicians have been repeating for decades. And by the time we reach the top of this list together, you will understand with complete clarity why your circulation may have kept declining even as you were doing everything your doctor told you to do. Let me give you an honest, biology-first account of what's actually happening inside your legs as you read this once you pass 60. Your blood vessels begin producing approximately 70% less nitric oxide, and that number deserves to land with full weight because nitric oxide is the master regulatory molecule that keeps your arterial walls relaxed, pliable, and open. And when your body's output collapses, those vessels respond by constricting, stiffening, and narrowing in ways that choke off the nutrient-rich blood flow your extremities depend on. And this isn't simply a matter of cold feet or occasional discomfort, because when circulation degrades seriously, your muscles are starved of the oxygen they need to function. Metabolic waste products accumulate in the tissue rather than being efficiently cleared. Nerve damage compounds incrementally over months and years. And what concerns me most, as someone who has spent years immersed in this research, microscopic clotting begins to occur inside those progressively narrowed vessels. Invisible and painless, but persistent and multiplying day after day without any obvious warning signal that anything is wrong. The standard advice, take a low-dose aspirin, get more steps in, prop your feet up when you sit, has some marginal justification, but it is fundamentally addressing the visible symptoms rather than the actual root mechanism, which is the progressive collapse of your body's nitric oxide production. And the critically important point I want to establish right now is that this collapse is not biologically fixed. It is not an irreversible sentence. It is a correctable physiological deficit, but you need to understand the underlying mechanism before the rankings ahead will make their full sense, because certain beverages have been shown through more than 3,000 peer-reviewed clinical studies to actively prompt your body to resume meaningful nitric oxide synthesis. Not through anything speculative or pseudoscientific, but through well-characterized enzymatic pathways that convert specific plant-derived compounds into bioavailable nitric oxide. And when that molecule floods your vascular system, your arteries begin to relax within minutes in a process called vasodilation, your blood vessels opening from a congested, backed-up side street into a wide, flowing highway. And when this happens fully, blood flow to your legs can increase by 40 to 60% within a single day. The heaviness in your limbs lifts. The nocturnal cramping that has been stealing your sleep eases off. Your feet begin generating warmth again. And over the weeks that follow, deeper structural repair takes hold as new capillary networks form. Nerve function begins recovering, and your statistical risk of a fall drops in ways that translate directly into preserved independence and mobility. But the critical nuance is that these drinks are not equivalent. Some are over-marketed noise. Some produce modest results at meaningful cost or risk, and a handful are genuine, evidence-backed game changers that cost almost nothing per daily serving. And I personally spent 6 months going deep into peer-reviewed literature, consulting with vascular specialists, and experimenting with every single one of these myself before assembling this ranking, starting from the bottom. Drink number 10 is plain water, and while I want to be generous here because hydration genuinely matters, dehydration thickens blood, and thicker blood moves more sluggishly through vessels that are already compromised. The honest truth that the wellness industry consistently refuses to say is that water alone accomplishes almost nothing meaningful for circulatory function once you're past 60, with research from the Journal of Applied Physiology showing only an 8% improvement in blood flow from adequate hydration in older adults. And when your underlying problem is a 70% deficit in nitric oxide production, an 8% gain is functionally irrelevant. Water contains 0 nitrate compounds, triggers no vasodilatory response, and keeps baseline function from completely falling apart without doing anything to actually rebuild it essential. Yes, like making sure your car doesn't break down on the roadside, but nowhere close to making it run well. Score 2 out of 10. Drink number 9 is green tea, which receives relentless favorable press and does contain catechins that gradually support vascular function. But for leg circulation specifically, the results are underwhelming. Studies show roughly a 12% improvement in flow-mediated dilation, which is better than water, but still far too modest given the scale of the problem. The catechins work slowly, building endothelial benefit across months rather than hours. Any gap in consumption erases the accumulated effect, and there's an added irony in that the caffeine content can actually trigger vasoconstriction in certain individuals, directly counteracting the goal. While most people are also preparing it incorrectly, boiling water destroys up to half the active catechins, and the optimal preparation temperature is 170 degrees Fahrenheit. No higher green tea has legitimate merits for antioxidant protection and cognitive health, but as a targeted leg circulation intervention, it is too slow, too inconsistent, and too easily undermined. Score 3 out of 10. Drink number 8 is tart cherry juice, which is where genuinely real physiological activity begins. The anthocyanins in tart cherry juice reduce arterial stiffness and improve vessel wall health. And research from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed an 18% improvement in blood flow after 12 weeks of consistent daily use, which is a meaningful number. But the sugar content is a serious complication. With 1 cup carrying approximately 30 grams of sugar that spikes insulin sharply and can temporarily impair the very circulation you're trying to improve, creating a frustrating push-pull dynamic. And at around $8 per bottle, it adds up to roughly $50 monthly, making it expensive for results that are real but slow and genuinely risky for anyone managing blood sugar dysregulation, which honestly includes a large proportion of adults over 60 if you do use it. Dilute 1 part juice into 3 parts water and consume it only in the morning to limit blood glucose disruption. Score 4 out of 10. Drink number 7 is pomegranate juice, which steps up the effectiveness considerably through its punicologens, extraordinarily potent antioxidant compounds that don't just stimulate nitric oxide production, but protect the nitric oxide your body is already producing from being rapidly oxidized and destroyed by free radicals, a protective mechanism that is genuinely elegant biochemistry. And the research is compelling, with a 22% improvement in blood flow after 4 weeks and 1 landmark study showing a 30% reduction in arterial plaque accumulation over a full year. But the sugar problem returns and is actually more pronounced here, with approximately 32 grams per cup. The cost runs $12 to $15 per bottle. And while it is effective for those who can afford it and whose blood sugar regulation can handle it, there are superior options higher on this list at a fraction of the price. Always purchase pure, no added sugar varieties and dilute substantially before consuming. Score 5 out of 10. Drink number 6 is a cocoa-based beverage, and this one is legitimately underappreciated in the clinical conversation about circulation. Genuine unprocessed cocoa powder contains flavanols that directly stimulate nitric oxide synthesis in a meaningful and measurable way, and a meta-analysis consolidating data across 42 separate studies found an average 24% improvement in blood flow, with effects beginning approximately 2 hours after consumption, fast enough that you can actually feel the response as warmth returns to the lower legs and tingling sensations begin to ease. But preparation matters enormously here. And I am not referring to commercial hot cocoa mixes loaded with sugar and artificial ingredients and trace amounts of actual cacao. The therapeutic application requires pure, unsweetened cocoa. Powder dissolved in hot water or unsweetened milk at a dose of 20 to 30 grams daily to achieve the 500 to 700 milligrams of flavanols, where vascular benefits become clinically significant. And since unsweetened cocoa is genuinely unpleasant for most people, I recommend a small amount of stevia or monk fruit sweetener, which has zero impact on blood glucose while preserving the full circulatory effect. Score 6 out of 10. Drink number 5 is watermelon juice, and we're entering genuinely elite territory. Now watermelon is among the richest natural sources of L-citrulline available, an amino acid your body converts with high efficiency directly into nitric oxide through the urea cycle, and a 1/6-ounce glass of fresh watermelon juice delivers approximately 1,000 milligrams of L-citrulline, with peer-reviewed studies demonstrating a 28% improvement in arterial function after 6 weeks, significant reductions in blood pressure, and meaningful decreases in arterial stiffness, with people consistently reporting noticeably warmer feet within 3 hours and the persistent aching heaviness in the lower legs diminishing within the first week of daily use. And unlike many other juices on this list, watermelon carries a relatively lower glycemic burden despite its sugar content. Due to its high water volume and fiber matrix, the limiting factor is purely practical. Fresh watermelon juice is only realistic during summer months, unless you're purchasing whole watermelons year-round, which becomes logistically inconvenient and expensive. But when access is available, this is a top 5 performer with strong evidence behind it. Score 7 out of 10. Drink number 4 is hibiscus tea. And this is the one I find most baffling in terms of how little it gets discussed. Given what the research actually shows, hibiscus flowers contain a concentrated profile of organic acids and anthocyanins that lower blood pressure and promote vasodilation through mechanisms distinct from simple nitrate conversion, specifically by improving endothelial function at the cellular level. And your endothelium, the thin inner lining of your blood vessels, is central to everything. Because when it's dysfunctional, your entire circulatory system suffers regardless of how much nitric oxide you're producing. And a rigorous 6-week clinical trial found that twice-daily hibiscus tea consumption reduced systolic blood pressure by 11 points and improved blood flow by 31%, with most people noticing meaningful changes within 10 days as cramping frequency drops and numbness begins to recede. And the cost is almost absurdly low at approximately $3 for a box, providing a full month of twice-daily use. Steep 2 hibiscus tea bags in near boiling water for a full 10 minutes. Consume once in the morning and once in the evening. The flavor is pleasantly tart and reminiscent of cranberry, and a small amount of stevia manages the acidity if needed. One important caution: hibiscus is a genuinely potent blood pressure reducer, so if you're currently on antihypertensive medications, please discuss this with your physician before using it aggressively. Score 8 out of 10. Drink number 3 is celery juice, which had a massive, overhyped cultural moment, with most of the claims attached to it being exaggerated or fabricated. But for vascular circulation, specifically, the science is actually solid and the mechanism is well understood. Celery is exceptionally dense in inorganic nitrates that your tongue's naturally occurring bacteria convert into nitrites, which your stomach acid then converts into bioavailable nitric oxide through a 2-stage pathway that begins the moment the juice enters your mouth. And a 1/6-ounce glass of fresh celery juice delivers roughly 250 milligrams of nitrates, sufficient to increase blood flow by 35 to 40% within approximately 3 hours. with a study published in the journal Hypertension confirming that dietary nitrates from vegetable sources improved circulatory function more effectively than synthetic nitrate supplements. Athletes have used this mechanism for performance enhancement for years, and the same pathway works powerfully for older adults. Dealing with vascular decline, fresh juice is optimal, requiring a juicer and 4 to 5 large celery stalks per serving, consumed first thing in the morning on a completely empty stomach to maximize nitrate absorption before food interferes with the conversion process. The flavor is assertively salty and earthy, and not something you'll drink for pleasure, but if genuinely repairing your leg circulation is the priority, that trade-off becomes very easy to accept. Score 8.5 out of 10. Drink number 2 is an arugula smoothie, and arugula holds a distinction that most people, including many nutritionists, are completely unaware of. It is the single highest natural source of dietary nitrates per pound of any vegetable on Earth, with 2 cups of fresh arugula delivering approximately 480 milligrams of nitrates, a concentration that by any meaningful measure is extraordinary. And when you blend arugula with fruit to temper its distinctively peppery character, you create something that functions less like a beverage and more like a targeted vascular intervention. With published research on nitrate-rich leafy greens demonstrating improvements in blood flow of up to 42% after 2 weeks of daily consumption, the recipe I use and recommend is 2 cups of fresh arugula, 1 cup of blueberries, half a banana for texture and natural sweetness, and 1 cup of unsweetened almond milk, blended thoroughly and consumed immediately, because dietary nitrates begin degrading within minutes of cell disruption, so there is no benefit to preparing it in advance. The circulatory impact in the legs is dramatic and relatively fast, with most people reporting major reductions in cramping within a week, perceptibly warmer feet, and noticeably improved walking endurance, followed by visible changes in skin tone and reduction in lower leg swelling within a month. The only reason this doesn't hold the top position is pure practicality. It requires daily preparation and consistent access to fresh arugula and a genuine commitment to the routine. But in terms of raw physiological impact, it competes with anything on this list. Score 9 out of 10. And the number 1 drink, the undisputed best for circulation, is beetroot juice, because beets contain the highest concentration of dietary nitrates available in any drinkable, widely accessible form, with a single 8-ounce glass of pure beetroot juice delivering approximately 300 to 400 milligrams of nitrates that your body converts into nitric oxide with extraordinary efficiency, producing blood flow increases of 30 to 50% within 2 to 3 hours of consumption, not as estimates or theoretical projections, but as measured outcomes in flow-mediated dilation studies, blood pressure assessments, and arterial stiffness evaluations conducted under rigorous clinical conditions. And what makes beetroot juice genuinely exceptional compared to everything else on this list isn't just the speed of the effect, but the sustained, compounding nature of the results. Because a landmark study published in the Journal of Applied Physiology tracked older adults consuming beetroot juice daily for 15 consecutive days and documented a 45% improvement in leg blood flow, a 38% reduction in arterial stiffness, a 22% improvement in walking endurance, and a significant reduction in claudication pain, the cramping that occurs during walking in people with compromised leg circulation, with participants reporting perceptibly warmer legs within hours of the first dose, cramping resolving within days, and at the 2-week mark, many describing the change as genuinely life-altering in terms of their daily mobility and confidence to use it correctly. Drink 8 ounces of pure beetroot juice every single morning on a completely empty stomach, because an empty stomach dramatically increases nitrate absorption efficiency, and that detail is not optional. Buy exclusively pure pressed beet juice with no additives, no sweeteners, no preservatives, nothing but beets, available at most major grocery stores for $6 to $8 per bottle. And if you own a juicer, 4 medium beets will yield approximately 8 ounces of fresh juice. 2 practical notes. Your urine may turn pink or red, a harmless phenomenon called beeturia that affects roughly 10 to 15% of people. And beets are moderately high in oxalates, so if you have a personal or family history of kidney stones, please speak with your physician before making this a daily practice. But for the vast majority of people over 60 dealing with declining leg circulation, beetroot juice is simply the most effective dietary intervention available. Score 10 out of 10. Now, here is the exact protocol I recommend implementing. Begin with 8 ounces of pure beetroot juice every morning on an empty stomach as your non-negotiable foundation. Add either hibiscus tea or fresh celery juice in the afternoon to accelerate your results. You don't need both simultaneously. Choose one and maintain it consistently. And for maximum impact, incorporate the arugula smoothie 3 to 4 mornings per week as a substitute or addition. And if you follow this protocol, the typical timeline unfolds like this. Within 3 days, you'll begin noticing warmth returning to your legs. Within a week, nighttime cramping will diminish substantially. Within 2 weeks, your walking ability will improve noticeably, and your balance and fall risk will reflect it. And within a month, your circulation will have transformed to a degree that may genuinely surprise the medical professionals you see regularly. I want to be direct about something. Consistency is the entire game here, because you cannot drink beetroot juice for 3 days and expect the kind of structural vascular improvement that protects your independence and mobility long term. This is a daily practice as habitual and non-negotiable as taking your prescribed medications, except that this approach actually addresses the root biological deficiency rather than managing downstream symptoms, and it costs roughly $30 a month, compared honestly to the financial and physical cost of prescription medications that come with side effect profiles longer than a legal contract. There are also critical mistakes I want you to avoid. Do not consume these drinks alongside food, waiting at least 30 minutes after drinking before eating because food significantly interferes with nitrate absorption. Do not use mouthwash immediately after drinking nitrate-rich beverages because commercial mouthwash eliminates the oral bacteria responsible for the first stage of nitrate to nitric oxide conversion, and you'll have destroyed the primary mechanism of action. Do not expect instantaneous complete resolution because genuine vascular remodeling takes weeks of consistent input. Do not discontinue any prescribed medications based on how you feel, because these drinks are powerful support tools. But any changes to your medication regimen require direct conversation with your physician. And do not purchase processed, sugar-laden commercial versions of these drinks. Read every label with scrutiny and reject anything containing added sugars, artificial flavors, or preservatives, because pure is the only standard that matters. What this ultimately comes down to is something I feel is deeply important to communicate clearly as Dr. Laura. Your body is not broken. Your blood vessels are not irreparably damaged. They want to function properly, and they will given the right biological raw materials. Because for generations we have been told that circulatory decline is simply an unavoidable consequence of aging, a fixed, predetermined deterioration with no meaningful intervention, and that framing is not accurate. It is not supported by current evidence. And what is actually happening for most people over 60 is not irreversible aging, but a correctable nutritional deficiency created and compounded by decades of modern processed food consumption. Because your great-grandparents ate beets, they ate arugula and celery and dark leafy greens packed with dietary nitrates. And we largely stopped doing that, replacing those foods with processed, refined, nutrient-stripped products, and then wondering why our vascular systems began failing in our 60s. You are not experiencing inevitable decline. You are experiencing the predictable consequences of a diet stripped of the compounds your vascular system requires to maintain itself. And that is something you can actually change starting tomorrow morning. Here is my challenge to you. Commit to 8 ounces of pure beetroot juice every morning on an empty stomach for 30 consecutive days. Keep a simple log of how you feel. Notice the warmth returning to your legs. Pay attention to when the cramping stops. Observe your walking endurance as it builds back. Take a photograph of your lower legs today and another in 30 days because the visible differences in color, texture, And swelling will be a more convincing argument than anything I could say. The science supporting this is not fringe or speculative. The results are real and reproducible, but none of it matters unless you actually do it, because your circulation will not correct itself on its own. These drinks are not a miracle. They are the specific nutritional inputs your vascular system has been starved of. So give it what it needs. Start tomorrow morning, 8 ounces, empty stomach, 30 days, because your legs, your mobility, and your independence are worth that commitment.